Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to Panzer Corps II, an upcoming turn-based World War II strategy game that is coming out by Matrix and Slytherin Games. This is the second battle that we're going to be fighting in the North African campaign. This is a preview version of the game, so not everything is finalized yet. They've said that some of the things like the sound, the audio, or some of that is not yet completely finalized or completely in the game yet. But with that being said, they did share some preview copies with some streamers, and also if you pre-ordered the game, you were given 2 days of access that I think ended actually yesterday. They extended the access for some of the streamers because I think basically a bunch of streamers are like, hey, 2 days wasn't enough for me to get to it. Is that something that you can give us a little bit longer? And they obliged, so we have a couple more days with this, so we'll get a little bit more of the North African campaign. We're going to be fighting the second battle in the North African campaign. There are 5 campaigns in the game. There's a 1939 grand scenario that goes from the beginning of the war to the end of the war. That has up to 61 scenarios or battles in it. There is a 1941 Russian scenario that looks at the Operation Barbarossa, the initial invasion of Russia, through to the completion of the war. There's a North African campaign, which starts in 1941. I assume focuses primarily on North Africa. I don't know, though. You might be able to end up in, like, Italy or whatever, depending on how the battles go. That's the one we're fighting. And then they have a 243 scenarios, both North Africa, or actually, sorry, Italy, and Russia, sort of as the tide turns and as the Germans are now on the defensive. So those are the 4 campaigns that you can play in the game. We are in the second battle, which is called Battle Axe. It takes place in June 1941. It was the first major British counteroffensive in the desert, and it was the first time that a major German formation, per my understanding, was on the defensive in World War II. This is before any of the Russian counterattacks in the winter, because obviously as of June 15th, the Russians haven't even been attacked yet, and there were no major counteroffensives by the Allies in the war until this point. Although that being said, the desert conflict, especially early, was always a little bit more of a sideshow in terms of the number of men engaged. So major by these standards may be different from late war standards. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the briefing and see what we've got with us. Well, I admit, Herr General, I'm impressed. Your execution of Rommel's plan was a stunning success, but unfortunately for you, the British have also taken notice, and I'm here to warn you that they're gearing up for a major counterattack as we speak. Your British opponents have just received a major resupply of equipment and tanks, and they're going to be throwing it directly at your forward positions in this region. Primary objective, defend all victory hexes. I recommend setting up defensive lines along this ridge here, along these easily defensible escarpments here, and anchor your center at this desert fort here. Repulse their hasty offensive with all of your might. That is the absolute minimum I expect of you. Should you have the strength for it, though, I think it could be a golden opportunity to not just beat the British, but to rout them entirely. See if you can penetrate the enemy lines as far as these towns here and here. Capturing both should cement this rout, and then we'll see if we can't deal with that thorn in our supply line, Tobruk. Okay, so Battle Axe was a counteroffensive that the British launched in an effort to liberate Tobruk, and that's what we're going to be fighting here, except we're going to be fighting on the defensive, which I think should be interesting, because if most of these games, and this character's specialty is shock tactics, most of these kind of games focus very heavily on the German offensives. Very rarely in these kind of campaigns, especially early war, do you get a chance to be on the defensive, and so this is one of those scenarios where you will be. We're going to put our hero in charge of this 26th Panzer IIIH unit. So let's go ahead and... How do I do that again? I don't remember. How do I... Oh, I. Right? Yeah, okay. So we're going to assign our shock tactic hero here. You can see this unit's history, all these other units. I don't know if anybody's actually... There's no history here for any of these units. But there are statistics. You can see the amount of... the info about the unit. Could have sworn maybe that's not in the game yet, but there is, I believe there's going to be a history that shows like this unit's, battle history, this unit's awards, this unit's insignia, those kind of things. Apparently you can customize your insignia, so that's interesting. You can customize your camouflage and those kind of things. Gmar, thank you very much for the follow. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and reinforce the troops that we already have. So it is cheaper to reinforce, per my understanding, before a battle begins. So these guys are 2 stars. I'm going to give them rookie reinforcements. These guys only need 1 HP reinforcements, so I'm going to go with rookies just for the expense benefit. There's not too much of a loss of experience. These guys would lose about 30% of their experience here. If they go with regular reinforcements. They're almost 3-star infantry, but the difference in cost is 53, which I'm a little bit cheap, so I'm going to go ahead and reinforce them with regular infantry as well. The armor reinforcements are all going to be regulars. There's just too much. The armor was pretty beat up after the last battle, so a lot of these guys are going to lose, you know, the 1 star they had. They'll kind of get like a hollowed out star, which means they have some experience, but not a ton. But again, it's very expensive to replace those units. We do have an anti-tank unit here. We've got some artillery, which is mostly at full strength. I find the artillery are the units that typically get the experience and keep the experience because of how they're typically behind the front lines, and so it makes it easier to keep their experience up. We've got 2 fighter units with 2 stars. We've got ABF 110 heavy fighter unit, and then we've got 2 Stukas, as well as a Heinkel. Heinkel 111? Yeah, that's what we've got. Now, we have 600 prestige left over. Part of me thinks we should upgrade our Panzer II-C and see what we can upgrade it to and how expensive it is to upgrade. Then we have a new tank. It's a Panzer IV-F. We could upgrade to that. It would cost 140. So the way the upgrades work, per my understanding, typically is you've got your unit, which is the 2C, which I don't actually even see as a current unit anymore. And then you usually have the cost difference between the Panzer II-C, Aus-C, and the Panzer IV Aus-F, and you pay the cost difference. So usually this unit's 310 prestige, but in this case, it'll only cost 140 to upgrade. We could also go with the Flame Panzer, which is a flamethrower tank. It's a little bit more of a specialist tank. Or we could go with the Panzer IIIH, which is more of an anti-tank tank, I believe. So if we take a look at the Panzer IIIH and the Panzer IV-F, the Panzer IV-F is notably better on soft attack. Hard attack is at 14 versus 16, so the 3 is better against enemy armor or hard targets, but the 4 is substantially better. Wow, it is better by more than 50%. It's 75% better against infantry. In terms of the initiative, the Panzer IIIH has more initiative, and everything else is pretty much the same. So again, this Panzer IIIH, I'm assuming it looks like it has a longer barrel. It's a better anti-tank tank. The Panzer IV is not as good of an anti-tank tank, but I think the difference, I mean, the 3 is 40 cheaper, but look at this. I mean, the difference between the 2 in terms of their soft attack is absolutely massive, and the anti-tank difference is somewhat marginal. You know, it's a difference of 2 in terms of the anti-tank warfare. It's a difference of 8 in terms of the anti-infantry warfare. I guess the question is, do we think they're going to be going with more infantry in their counterattack or more armor? Probably more armor. So actually, we'll go with the 3H. We already have some 4s anyway. We have this 4E right here. We've got 3H, 3H, 3G, 3G, 3H. So we actually have a very heavy Panzer III sort of bias in our forces at the moment. Our recon car, our anti-tank vehicle, and then we've got 4 artillery units. That should be useful on the defense. We probably need more infantry, to be honest. So we'll have to see about deploying here. But before we buy anything else, let's go ahead and deploy. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy an infantry unit on each of these objectives on this ridge. One on the Herod Ridge on the left, one on the right. Then over to Fort Capuzzo, or however you pronounce that. We're going to go with an infantry unit in the town itself. I'm going to go ahead and put armored units with anti-tank capabilities out front of the town, as I think this will be more terrain a little bit more suited to tank warfare in the open. On the ridge, it's probably less suited to tank warfare, so we're probably going to get an advantage of tanks are attacking uphill. So we'll actually put our infantry tank here, because I think they may go more with an infantry approach on that base. Meanwhile, it looks like we've got a bunch of units that sort of straggle back here to Bardo, which I'm assuming are more in reserve. I'm guessing the enemy has to sweep north and attack through these positions first. We may have to bring them down to the Haifa Pass. But this looks like a little bit more of a reserve. I'm going to put this number 12 unit back there. I'm also going to put this number 12 unit sort of on the flank here. It can race to the right or reinforce the center here. We're going to put 1 artillery piece on each of these ridge lines here. We'll put our mobile artillery over here on the right. We'll put it in between here. And then we'll put our Stug back here. Recon, I guess the rest will kind of trickle back. Our anti-tank probably should be in that position as well. Anti-aircraft should also be in this formation here, just because who knows what's going to be coming down the line. Then we'll put this tank unit up here on the right. In terms of our air bases, we're going to base everything out of this Italian base here. It's the furthest base forward to the front line, and so it should give us the best range. Although if it does fall to the enemy, we may need to rebase or things like that to keep that in mind. But for now, we're going to put our fighters up front. We're going to put our Stukas in the middle, and we'll put our Heinkel apparently has to fly further back, because there must be some... The game doesn't really tell me, but the graphic here, you can see this looks like it's more of a desert airbase strip, very kind of bare bones. If we scroll north and we go back toward this base over here, we can see the airfield up here is, by the looks of it, concrete. So I'm assuming the strategic bombers might actually have to base from a larger airbase, which is interesting because that's not something I've ever seen represented in any of these kind of games before. Okay, so that's all of our initial deployments for the most part. I do think we probably want to buy one more infantry unit here. We're 8 below our potential maximum. So we're going to go with a Grenadier infantry unit. We'll give them an Opal Blitz, and we'll go... We don't need to overstrength the infantry. We'll just go with the Opal Blitz. That'll take up about half of our remaining prestige for the initial deployment. And I think we'll leave that as that, and then we'll kind of go from there. So that'll be our initial deployment. We'll go ahead and hit end deployment. I have unused core slots, which we could purchase more. I mean, I don't want to spend... The problem is I don't want to spend all my prestige, because I'm going to need it for reinforcements. Especially when we're on the defensive. All right, so the British are attacking here on the right flank up this roadway here along the coast. They're having some very substantial success early against this Italian anti-tank position. Looks like they wiped that out there. You can see we lose a little bit of line of sight on what else is going on in the desert there. They've got a recon aircraft up there. Additional infantry kind of sweeping up north here. Our airbase here is going to be very vulnerable very fast to this formation moving north. So we got to keep that in mind, because what I don't know is if you lose your airbase, do you lose your... do you lose all the aircraft based out of that airbase? Because that certainly seems... I mean, it could be the case. All right, so there are British Spitfires, some Blenheims. We've got a Lysander, which I think is just a scouting aircraft. Can my Stuka reach over here? No, my Stuka cannot reach the armor on the left flank from its current position. It can reach this British armor here, this Matilda out here in the open. So we're going to go after that with our Stuka. Second Stuka is going to go after this Daimler. We're going to send our BF-109s here against the enemy Spitfires before they have a chance to ravage our own Air Force. Wow, 5-3. That was not a very friendly exchange. Do I have an anti-aircraft gun over here? All right. So we've taken out a majority of his Spitfire strength. Should neutralize him for the next turn. I'm hoping they don't have more Spitfires to go after our Stukas over here. You can see here we also detected infantry, artillery, and tanks a little bit further back. We're going to hit this enemy tank with artillery fire. We'll drive our artillery up this hill, hit these guys. Okay, so artillery in action. We'll swing these tanks to the left here to prevent being flanked. Move these guys down off the hill. Maybe not. That armor is trying to get around our flank. 1 to 5. Alright, so we'll swing these guys over here. They're going to do some pretty bad damage against this enemy unit. They actually pushed them back. So go ahead and pursue off the ridge. We drove it back. Move our armor over here in a counterattack against this enemy armor. There's our 3H going against enemy. I wish I could move and then fall back. Okay. I mean, I'm already pretty much fully committed to the offensive at this point. Move our Stug down here and support. A recon car can come up here and do a pretty good amount of damage on this British infantry unit in the open. Or at least that was what it was supposed to do. Anti-tank gun down here. We'll bring our anti-aircraft gun. Our infantry. And then I forgot about our Heinkel. So we knocked that one British infantry unit out. Let's go hit this enemy artillery with our strategic bomber. Suppressed it a little bit. Looks like there's a mobile 20mm anti-aircraft gun, but it didn't really do a ton of damage. Alright, so we're going to swing this Italian armor left here to try and knock out this lead British infantry unit. We drove it back. Looks like I have to retake this objective, by the way, that we lost. So every base that we hold, we have to maintain. So I think it's really going to come down to destroying as many of these enemy units as we can. This unit here, this 3rd Italian Infantry, will act as a brake on the advance on this airfield, but we may have to evacuate the airfield after this next turn. I think that about does it for this turn, though. Move our infantry over here. So we destroyed one British infantry unit here. We destroyed a 2nd infantry unit down in the south, forced it to surrender. Beat up some Daimlers and Matildas. Position ourselves for a counterattack against this Crusader here. I think that about does it for this turn. This Italian infantry is just going to stick in place and dig in. Same for the German infantry up here. I suppose we could advance with the Panzer IIIG. But I don't want to abandon this objective here. So we'll keep this guy in place for now, and then I think we'll go ahead and wrap this turn up. So we'll move to turn number 2. Yeah, Turget, we did have one tank left to move. You were 100% correct. All right, so British armor, one of the Matildas coming up here to attack this Italian infantry here. The 1st Bersaglieri infantry came up as well, pushed them back. Anti-aircraft came up. Actually, didn't do any damage to that Stuka, just suppressed it. Meanwhile, their armor here against our Panzer IIIH, we got the better of that exchange 3-1. They're really sweeping a lot of... Oh, shit. Sweeping a lot of armor up and around our left flank, which is a little bit exposed in the desert, but then for some reason moved their Crusader around here to hit our Stug. Or not our Stug, our Panzer something. Or Sturmpanzer. So they really blew up this 10.5 centimeter artillery unit. We're going to go ahead and reinforce it there. Do they have any other air around here? It doesn't look like they've got a ton of air. They do have this Lysander. I'm going to reinforce this 109. And I'm going to go with elite reinforcements. Because that Spitfire is going to be back. So let's go after this Lysander. Both our 110 and our 109. Shot it up pretty good. Couldn't finish it off. Alright, we'll move our anti-aircraft down a bit. Alright, so their Daimler's pretty vulnerable. I really want to do some damage to this armor here, though, that's going after my artillery. So we kept on the ridge and then attacked it so we would have the high ground advantage. Then we swept up over here on the flank. Okay. All right, so we forced that enemy unit to surrender. Another enemy unit destroyed. Hit this guy with artillery. Then our armor can attack. Drives it back. I think we'll wait. Whoops. We'll wait to pursue with the infantry here. But we will block his advance at least. I'm trying to keep the units that I think should stay in place in place. Like, I don't want to I don't want to move everything that I could move for fear of opening up, you know, myself to a counterattack there. I'll go after these Matildas with the Stuka unit here. I'm more worried, frankly, about the attacks on the right flank, because I think there's a lot coming up here through the Halifa Pass, so I'm going to go ahead and hit those guys. Meanwhile, our 111 here, come down and hit this infantry. They've got to have artillery support. There's no reason it should be so lopsided there. All right, so we'll bring our 3G. All right, let's bring this the 7th L640 here against this enemy infantry on the flank. Bring the recon car forward there too. Can the 3G finish him off? Not quite. Alright, reinforce those guys. Move these troops down on trucks. Keep these guys in place. Bring the assault gun down here. I don't think it'll finish these guys off. It looks like it'll just suppress them. Yep. Okay. We'll leave those infantry in place. I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up. We'll bring these anti-tank guns down onto the right flank a little bit. I don't know if the Italians laughed at their own tanks just because they weren't good. I'm sure having, you know, reminds me of the, was it a Band of Brothers scene where they're complaining, you know, the tankers are complaining like, hey, we've only got like an inch of armor. And the GI is like, how much armor do you think is on this? And he like grabs his uniform. Like 2 millimeters of fabric or something. Okay. Also, I will say the L6 is very effective against enemy infantry. All right, so that's going to do it for that turn. So we'll move forward to turn number 3, and we'll see what happens here. I'm hoping we took a little bit of sting out of the enemy's initial attack. More enemy fighters coming up this way. I'm guessing they still have a fairly strong fist coming down the Halifa Pass road. Oh, shit. Enemy fighters really shot up our Stukas there. Oh, no, we lost it. Damn it. That's why you have your fighters in support of your tactical air. Because things like Stukas are so damn vulnerable. Anti-aircraft shooting at the 110 there. Armor moving up there. A lot of British artillery here. Whoa, that TAC air badly shot up that artillery piece. This might be a battle I win, but it's going to be a battle that's going to be very interesting to see how we come back from a quality of our troops perspective. Okay, so we'll keep engaging that enemy armor on the flank. Let's knock out that enemy anti-aircraft. I'm not sure if that's the pass where the became known as Hellfire Pass or not. I really have no idea. Alright, move this armor here. Alright, Spitfires are back. Viewfighter, let's get this thing out of the sky. It's very effective against my my own fighters. Alright, we'll knock out that enemy. Oh, nice! So the L6 was able to knock out the enemy anti-aircraft guns, and then it was able to continue moving, so that it moved back to the right flank here and attacked this British infantry in the open. Our anti-tank gun will sweep down here and engage this Matilda. Okay. See if we can do any damage against him there. Multiple attacks against these guys. Just surrender. No? Okay. I guess I'll take 1 to 3. That's not a bad exchange. Problem is I keep damaging enemy units, but I don't have sufficient forces to finish them off. Alright, I'm trying to, and I'm also trying to balance keeping my troops reinforced and up to strength. I don't know how I'd rate it against Panzer Corps I and OOB. Panzer Corps I is very much, it feels more like the old-timey Panzer General, which I like for some things. This feels a little bit like, the look and feel is a little bit like, and I don't mean this as a criticism as much as it may sound like one, like Panzer General 3D. But there's some charm to this. I mean, I'm enjoying my time with it anyway. Alright, we're going to end this turn. Alright, so artillery fire and support against these infantry who are going against our anti-tank guns. Technically, I think our anti-tank guns are considered encircled with this little white circle around them, although I don't quite understand the logic to that because we've got troops adjacent to them. Just kind of the way the zones of control work, I guess. Alright, they're going after our Italian tanks there. Not a lot of success for their infantry there. They actually pulled back to high ground. Then their armor swung around and overran that tank unit there. That was a pretty effective attack for them. The problem is I don't have any real visibility into what's behind the front. So I really don't know how much more is coming that I can't see. But they sure have a lot of air power. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Panzer Corps, our look at the North African campaign, our third video in this series. I did manage to get the, well, not just me, but they agreed to extend, as I think I said earlier in the video, the access to the beta for the YouTube and Twitch community, so I was able to play a little bit further into the campaign here the other night on a live stream, and that's what this is from. We'll pick this up next time in our next video. But until next time, I hope you guys are enjoying the series. Please let me know your thoughts below. And as always, until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.